Something is off about my marriage. I am not Oop. Oop is you, Cherith. Cute story. Originally posted to our marriage. Something is off about my marriage. Trigger warnings. Spousal neglect. Possibly misogyny. Less than. And NBSP. Original post October 19, 2023. We have 3 kids and have been married around 15 years. I'm coming to the realization that I just don't like my wife very much. I asked myself recently if we'd still be together if we didn't have kids, and the answer is a resounding no. I've been in denial for a long time. Our worldviews are completely different. Outside of the honeymoon period, sex has not been good. It's probably once a month now, and I barely want it that often. I've had to take Viagra to perform. I've blamed it on an autoimmune disease, but I know the real reason is I'm not attracted to her anymore. I used to have a very high sex drive. The problem is there's not much I can really point to and say, I can't take this anymore. We need to divorce. She's not abusive. She's affectionate. There's never been infidelity. I think I just have some resentments I can't get past. I've brought up things she's done that bother me, and she'll act like it's not a big deal. Or she'll think it's resolved when it's not. There's been an issue with her treating me disrespectfully, but it's so subtle she doesn't realize she's doing it even when I point it out. She's given me the silent treatment about 67 times in our marriage for a couple of days at a time, but hasn't done it in a few years. I know people will bring up marriage counseling. I've brought it up with her, but she seems to think that's for couples that argue constantly. Any advice would be appreciated. And NBSP. Relevant comments. China, Russia. It's called marriage. When's the last time you put serious thought, effort to make things better, not for the kid or the home but for the two of you? Time to reinvent. The grass is greener where you water it. We've have a weekly date night. We talk more. I'm sure there is more I can do personally. I'd love any advice. And NBSP. Update October 23, 2023. First of all, thank you for all the comments. I read all of them even if I wasn't able to reply. I woke up Friday wondering why I was feeling the way I was feeling about my wife. Why did I have to force myself to touch her or tell her I love her? For a long time I thought I had some resentments and repressed anger and thought I just needed to let go of it all. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't necessarily anger. It was disgust. I thought it was strange since my wife is an objectively attractive woman. So I did some Googling and found some articles that described the phenomenon. Apparently this disgust is felt when the marriage falls into mother-son dynamic. When reading these articles, it seemed to describe what was happening in my marriage. I wasn't attracted to my wife because she was acting like my mother, and no man wants to sleep with his mom. I eventually came upon some articles by an author named Laura Doyle. I was shocked because she described the dynamic of my marriage to AT. The gist is the wife will try to control or nag to the husband under the guise of helping. Then the husband will take this as disrespect and will pull away and become cold, which then causes the wife to complain about him not being loving, which causes the husband to pull away further as this comes across as more criticism. In Laura's words, men need respect like they need oxygen. I got some alone time with my wife on Saturday and wanted to talk about our marriage. I was very nervous as I wasn't sure how she'd take it. I eventually brought up that I thought the problem was this dynamic. She was shocked and said she didn't see it that way at all, and asked if I could give an example of her treating me like a child. So I mentioned something that happened a few days prior that really bothered me. We have a bin for recyclables under our sink, and I had inadvertently left some cardboard next to it, instead of putting it inside the bin. She then rudely asked if I did that. I said yes, I must have by accident, then came over and picked it up and put it in the bin while she stared at me with an annoyed look. I then said she had a habit of drinking tea in the morning and leaving her cup in some random place. But I always just put the cup away and don't think much of it. I asked her how she would feel if I asked if she left the cup there, then stared at her as she put the cup in the dishwasher. It seemed like a light bulb went off in her head and she seemed mortified. She gave a sincere apology and said she'll be more mindful. I felt like a switch flipped once it was clear that it was unintentional. We talked a bit more and she reached out her hand across the table and I took it. After a bit she looked down and said, "I thought you stopped loving me." That broke my heart. I realized then that I never stopped loving her. We just fell into this dynamic without realizing what was happening. We realized our communication skills were poor and we needed help. I asked if we could counseling and she agreed right away. To my surprise, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted. Not long after that we were cooking dinner and she asked if we could head to the bedroom. I got excited and followed her there. We didn't have much time, but it was the most passionate sex we've had in years. And I didn't need any chemical help this time. Yesterday we got to spend a lot of time together and I couldn't keep my hands off her. It's funny because for years she had been asking me to touch her more and tell her I love her, but this is the first time I actually wanted to. It ended up being a great day. Even this morning I woke up a few minutes before her alarm and looked forward to her waking up so could cuddle in bed for a while. I know we still have work to do and we'll need to make sure not to slip into old patterns, but for the first time in years I feel excited about my marriage. And NBSP. This is a repost sub IAM not oop. Laura Doyle? That woman needs to run fast and far. What did I just read here? It seemed like an happy ending at first, but rereading more closely and it seems more like a horror story. In case anyone's wondering about Laura Doyle's perspectives on marriage and women, per Wikipedia, she spearheaded the Surrendered Wives movement. The Surrendered Wives movement is centered on 6 basic principles. 1. A wife relinquishes control of her husband's life. 2. She respects his decisions for his life. 3. She practices good self-care. She does at least 3 things a day for her own enjoyment. 4. She practices expressing gratitude, thanking her husband for the things he does. 5. A surrendered wife is not afraid to show her vulnerability and take the feminine approach. 6. She trusts him to handle household finances. Having female support is cited by Doyle as a critical component for success for the woman who chooses to surrender. I'm sure this is going to end so well. Edit. Formatting. Apparently this disgust is felt when the marriage falls into mother-son dynamic. When reading these articles it seemed to describe what was happening in my marriage. I wasn't attracted to my wife because she was acting like my mother and no man wants to sleep with his mom. The gist is the wife will try to control or nag to the husband under the guise of helping. Then the husband will take this as disrespect and will pull away and become cold, which then causes the wife to complain about him not being loving, which causes the husband to pull away further as this comes across as more criticism. Dude just straight up admitted that his wife is exhausted from having to mother him. Location flag 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 location flag. Reading OOP's comments is a big yikes for me, dog. Hoping the marriage counseling helps them both as individuals and as partners and evens out those ridiculous fundamentals. Doyle is just EU nauseated face. Oh God. This can't be so blatantly one-sided all her fault. My money is on his weaponized incompetence that has resorted in her having to nag. It's probably not the first, second, Or 19th time he's left recyclables beside the bin. It probably turns what should be a 15-second job of emptying the bin into a 2-minute job of having to locate all of the other recycling materials that also didn't make it into the bin. Every time. A surrendered wife is a wife who has given up on her own self-respect. Fuck that BS. Just sounds like guerrilla marketing for Laura Doyle. Yeah, Laura Doyle sucks. And oop, talking about great she is makes me think he sucks too. Did anyone else physically recoil when they read, "Men need respect like they need oxygen," or did I read that wrong? Are you sure Laura Doyle isn't Andrew Tate? No woman behaves like your mother if you are not behaving like a child. Is that easy actually? The only bloody thing he could bring to the table in the conversation was she leaving a bloody cup of tea in the sink? Come on man. He's totally avoiding the fact of they having children and their care. The light mention of anger issues and blaming the wife for it is absolutely terrifying. I am so hung up on the accidentally putting recycling next to the bin. Did he get to the bin and forget what he was doing? Why is this bothering me so much LMAO? This read like it would be a happily ever after even though the vibe seems a bit off. Nah, I must be thinking too much. But right at the end the protagonist turns and gives a grin. Is that an evil grin? That makes you all confused in a second. You go wait a minute. And go through the story again, this time reading between the lines and actually thinking with your brain. Now where have I seen that Laura name before? That's when you realize it was not what you thought it was. I hope our collective prayers, well-wishing reaches that woman out there somewhere. Folded hands. This sounds like a slightly more clever than average misogynist. Ladies, is your husband no longer as affectionate as he once was? Look to your own behavior. Are you respecting him enough? It might be unintentional. You might unaware that you're doing it. Here's a female expert who studies this. My wife realized she wasn't respecting me enough. And all she had to do was one small thing and suddenly bam, she wanted me again. Quote. As a man, ew. This will end bad. It reads like an ad for Laura Doyle. I don't like the way this made me feel. Ick. Why does this feel like a viral advertisement for Laura Doyle?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.